perfect? No. Do they make mistakes? Sure. Because, you can't be an expert in every territory in the whole country. And I can speak from experience because I remember years ago, I had a client who wanted to open up a Sir Speedy in Morgan Hill, California. And when his application first came in, they turned him down. Of course, needless to say, I was furious. And I said to him, why would you turn him down? Oh, well, the market's not big enough. Well, once I went in and brought him more data. Now, mind you, this is before the internet, so they didn't have as much good data. But I was able to show them that this market was really growing, that IBM was in San Jose and people were moving down that way. So the point I'm trying to say is that the franchisor, again, has a vested interest. So they're going to help them find the real estate. They're going to have pre-training. They're going to have post-training. But the biggest mistake.
Yo, what is up? This is Christian D. Evans, host of Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. And I just want to share with you real quick, thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It really means a lot to us, but also our community. And, if you like this, please share this with your friend, your family, a colleague, someone that you don't even like. Definitely share that with them. And then also leave a comment and a review for us. We really do appreciate that. And show our guests some love if you find that this episode really resonates with you. Secondly, also want to share with you some really awesome news. I've had the fortunate opportunity to network and have incredible guests, 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs, CEOs, and founders on our podcast. And what we've done is we've actually been able to open up a Be Uncommon If You Can mastermind, where we're able to open up the door for so many of you, right? Those that are 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs that are scaling, that are struggling, that really want to level up their game, their business, their life, whatever it is. I'm able to open up that door for you with this Be Uncommon If You Can mastermind. Now, we're only taking a select few of individuals. So what you'll need to do is go to christiandeevans.com/mastermind-now. And the link is actually in the description as well. Guys, that is christiandeevans.com/mastermind-now. We're only opening this up for a select few of individuals that really want to level up their game. You have a conversation with me, see if you qualify. And guys, enjoy the episode. And remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning into Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans, and we have a franchise queen, franchise expert in this industry. And guys, we are so excited to have this individual on. She has been in the industry for 35 years in this industry. She's also known as a certified franchise executive, CFE, has owned and operated franchise businesses and has been advising and coaching people in the world of franchising, like I said, for 35 years. She wants to share her experience and passion for franchising with us today. We're going to be diving deep into that. What's going on in the industry? Where is it going? And obviously the massive American dream that you can leverage by leveraging this amazing platform. Now, she started her career in the franchising industry working for the corporate office of Sir Speedy Printing in Newport Beach. And then she started working with an individual that was huge, created the Franchise Bible. He actually was the Erwin Koop, a franchise attorney who wrote the authoritative work of the Franchise Bible, like I mentioned, and he would do the legal work. She, though, would create the marketing materials, sales systems, and then find quality franchise owners, which is a whole massive operation. Please welcome my friend, the one and only Phyllis Pieri. How are you doing today, Phyllis?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? I'm so excited that we get to do this.
I'm very excited as well because obviously, a lot of franchise industry has been around for really not that long in retrospect to other business models. However, though, it's very, very exciting to see how it's still very reputable in today's industry. And so I'd like for you to just kind of share with us the kind of what's going on in the market, the value of it, and as well as kind of what your play is to help these people really achieve success.
Okay. So before we get started, I'm just going to tell you that I have 2 dachshunds that decide to talk to every dog that walks by in the neighborhood. So if you hear dogs in the background, I apologize, but this is real life. Okay. So anyway, so the franchise industry is absolutely exploding, to be honest with you, because people have made a decision that they want to do something different. They're tired of working for somebody else. And we're seeing a huge onslaught of people coming into the market, which we're very excited about. We're also seeing a lot of money come into franchising because venture capital money is realizing that franchising is a wonderful way for people to be able to get into business with proven systems and be successful and do multiple brands. And we're seeing a trend in companies acquiring several brands in a niche, we'll say service industry. So they'll have a painting franchise and a roofing franchise and a plumbing franchise, everything to do with the home, with the idea being that they can, what they would say, own the home. So if you think about a customer that that needs to have their house painted, they say, oh, by the way, since you're going to sell your house, we've got a cleaning crew that can come in. Now you're using the same marketing and so forth. So they're doing a lot of cross promoting, and it's brilliant. It's a great way for people to grow.
Well, that's one of the things that I always found so interesting, because it is just a different approach. So, and one of the things I've always found interesting is like the franchise, we're always familiar with the restaurant industry, but there's so many other different franchises that people are not even aware of, honestly.
Right.
So maybe if you could just share with me kind of like a few amazing franchise opportunities that are coming up that you're seeing, that are industries that may or not, like, people are familiar with, that they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was an industry.
So I'll give you, we have a lot of franchises that are emerging, that are coming into the world of franchising. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that I do, is I help people who have a successful business model explore whether turning it into a franchise is the right thing for them to do. And then as far as the existing ones, for instance, automotive is something that is going to be around forever. People are always going to have their oil changed. And yet we had a young man that came to our company and said, I've got this system. And he was running his operation. I think he had 12 locations. He was running them literally on his iPhone. And he said, I really think this is franchisable. So, and it's called Costa Oil. And he's opening, they're little single 1 or 2 bay, and they're putting them in leftover properties and shopping markets and so forth. So it's just a really interesting new twist on automotive. But we've got anything in the service industry is giant, whether it's, we've got mosquitoes are a huge problem all around the country. Even here in California, they're becoming a real problem. So, we've got brands that they're seasonal. They may work 9 months out of the year, but they make enough money to be able to sustain and be very successful in a year's period of time. And so they can take off the holidays and enjoy their family and so forth. So those are some of the things that are very different that people wouldn't think were really a franchise. So.
See, and you mentioned something earlier on, and I want to kind of swing back around, because you do say like the verticals, and that's what I always love it. Like, service-based businesses or coaches or whatever, it's like, hey, there's another service that our client is going to most likely want as the journey goes on, and so it's like what other product that is, and of course in franchising you can do that. You can acquire these different things. Now, my question in strategically, what would be the best? Would it be to basically focus on that one franchise and have numerous of those franchises, or would it be to focus on that one franchise and have like different verticals throughout the customer journey?
Right. So I think the one of the differences we're seeing is typically years ago, and not that long ago, and people still do, will buy like multiple territories. So, you find a brand you really like, and you may secure 3 or 4 territories of that particular brand. Well, one of the things that happens sometimes, somebody gets in the business and they buy a 3-pack or a 5-pack, they get in and go, oh my God, this was a lot of work. And maybe they don't want to expand more, and then they can resell those territories. But a lot of times what happens is, instead of them buying 3 of the same one, they're going to buy, a lot of times people have this vision. And I remember years ago, they didn't encourage that at all. I want to buy several franchises. Well, let's do the first one and make sure you know what you're doing and you like being a business owner. And then we can consider opening 2 and 3. Now, when somebody wants to come do that, it's much more feasible. And the reason it is because they're using the same platform. So it's not like I have to learn, this company system and this company system and this one. It's all the same back office. It's just that you're adding a different service. So it might go to a different call center, but you're adding a new service, and you're using the same marketing, and you're going out to the same customer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I love that approach, actually. So tell me a little bit more, like different strategies, or let's start with this first.
Okay.
when because like you mentioned a little bit, a lot of franchise owners definitely they haven't, like at the beginning, they haven't like ran a business, they run a business, they don't know what it really takes fully, and so there's like misconceptions or expectations. So if you could just kind of share with, like, what have you seen are certain hurdles that majority of individuals face and that they should expect, because then that means, okay, hey, if I expect them, then obviously I don't get like rambunctious and get emotional. It's focusing on the bigger vision. So
That's the
love for
truth,
you to walk through that.
yeah, if you can have awareness of what's coming and what you're going to need to work on, it makes it so much easier to be willing to learn, right? It could be taking on a business coach, because it's one thing for the franchisor to teach you the systems and the process. But if you've never run a business before, having a business coach to go alongside of you might be a really good idea, because they can help you be more accountable and make sure you get some of the things done. One of the things that I'm really encouraging my clients to do is to hire a virtual assistant right away. Because if you think about it, one of the biggest challenges people have in business is their social media. I mean, it used to be, when we had our Sir Speedy had their own printing department, and they would print pallets of direct mail business cards or postcards, right? And they would ship them out to all their owners. And then I would take franchisees out, or potential franchisees out, and do store tours. And we'd be looking around the store, and what would I see in the back but a dusty pile of postcards that they never got mailed? Well, it's the same thing today with social media. The franchisor may give them the information to post, but they don't do it. And so hiring a VA is a great way for them to have the VA take care of all that, so they know their name is getting out there, and then teaching them how to really be good at local networking and that type of thing. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I did. You did, and I really appreciate that insight. So now, kind of pivoting a little bit further on the back end. So naturally, now that they kind of have that expectation a little bit, like you said, that little bit of mindset paradigm shifts as well, because coming from employee to business owner mindset, but also, what is the expectation in regards to, like, the return on capital, return on investment? Because naturally on the front end, you are buying a system, and obviously the cost of entry is a little higher. However, though, you are buying into something that is proven, so that obviously is more beneficial in the success result on the back end. But just kind of, I understand, like, sometimes it takes 4 or 5 years before you actually start, becoming profitable or cash flowing. What other ways that they could help, like, facilitate that growth?
Well, depending on the type of business, it shouldn't take that long, because remember, when a person starts Joe's independent, whatever it called business, they have to figure everything out. They have to figure out who's the customer, where am I going to find them, is this system going to work? All of that. All of that is done for you. I think one of the misconceptions is that it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of darn work. And the ones that we see are the most successful are the ones that admit that and are willing to roll up their sleeves and work really hard to make it happen. It's the ones that come from, I think the biggest challenge corporate America people have is they're so used to having other people do things for them. And all of a sudden, guess what? You're the one taking out the trash and cleaning the bathroom. Sorry, it's just the way it is. And, people have to be comfortable with the ownership and the different role they're playing. Now they're going out and they're joining the Chamber of Commerce, and they're really becoming part of the local community. And that's a big shift from working for big corporate America, and local businesses. I was just at a ribbon cutting yesterday, and they are really excited to have people come in and open businesses. So it is a mental shift going from being an executive in a company and being a business owner.
Now let's talk also a little bit about, like, there are a ton of different franchise opportunities, and it's almost like analysis by paralysis. And so we study and we study and we study. And so obviously someone like yourself, there are some really good opportunities, and there are some that are okay opportunities, right? They still will produce results, but it's always like, which vehicle will produce the best result? That's the question you have to ask yourself. So, when someone's kind of looking at their options and what they qualify for, what are certain things that they should be aware of? Like, okay, red flags, okay, maybe this isn't the best opportunity for me. And green flags, like, oh, this is going to really fit along kind of what my vision is.
Right. So I think some of the important things are, you hear a lot about passion. Passion is a wonderful thing, but passion isn't going to necessarily make you the money you're looking for. It really needs to be the right skill sets. So for instance, and you and I talked about this, when people think franchising, they think food. I will tell you that 90% of people don't qualify for food. And once they realize all the HR involved, they don't want to do food. On the other hand, they may be adrenaline junkies and they did food in college and they loved it. They'd be a good candidate. However, the thing that, okay, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. So, I hate it when I do that. Okay, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
You're fine. Just to reiterate the question, just make sure it's like really being able to identify which opportunities are the best
right. Okay, sorry.
compared to the good. You're good.
Right. Okay. So, so when I work with my clients, the things we're looking for are the characteristics. What are the skills you're really good at? So if you really like managing a team, then finding a business that is going to have the type of employees you're used to working with will be a really good thing, because it's something it needs to be something you enjoy doing. If you say to me that you hate consultative sales and this business is all about consultative sales, then it's not going to be a good fit for you. Now, if the business has several components to it, then whatever it is you love to do, let's say we've got a husband and wife, which is a really good example. And if we have a husband and wife, it's very important that each of them have to have assigned roles. So whatever he's good at, he needs to be focused on that part of the business. She needs to be focused on this part of the business that she really enjoys doing. And he needs to give her autonomy and remember that he is not her boss, because she is not going to like that. And there's going to be a lot of controversy in the family. So you each have to have assigned roles. But one of the things that I find challenging, and I really dig deep with my clients, is the type of employees. If they want employees, if they had experience with employees, and what kind. Because I've had situations where somebody got into the business and they realized that the type of employee they were hiring were not people they related to. They didn't understand them very well, and it was not a good match. So those are the type of things they have to be careful of. But here's the thing I love about franchising. There isn't any part of the business or any question that will come up that you can't get answered when you talk to the franchise owners. Obviously, it has to be in the way you approach the owners and the way you ask the questions. And I help with all of that. But you're not going to walk in thinking, oh, I hope, and gee, I wish, and I wonder. You're going to know, this is what I have to do. This is, these are the steps I have to take in order for me to be successful and to make money. And it's really going to be whether or not you follow the system and you work hard. And part of the process that I work with people and how I coach them is I figure out how long can you last? What is your budget? What is your cash flow personally? So that we know I need to bring you a business that can get you to your goals and that you have enough sustainability in the background to be able to support yourself until it starts throwing off the cash you're looking for. Because they're all going to be different.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit, because you brought up some really good points. So whenever I do real estate, I understand that there are certain metrics that I in my own life, I have like certain rules. And if I go against those rules, I've discovered I lose money. If I stay within those rules, like the cash flow, the revenue, what's this should be, the zip codes, the states, right? Exactly. And there's certain rules. And so my question for you is like, let's dive into that a little bit further in regards to like, okay, how much should they have in cash flow, in cash reserves, sitting in the bank, expecting a COVID situation, like, whatever it may be, right? So if you could just kind of walk us through that a little bit.
So in the franchise disclosure document, which is a legal document that everyone will receive, there's going to be item 7. And in item 7, it's going to have all of the costs involved in the business. And it's going to have a high and low section. The reason for that is the government said, we don't want you to have any surprises. So, it's going to say that if it's a location, it's going to have the rent, right? And it's going to have the build out. Well, there's going to be variations. It's going to depend on the size of the square footage and, how elaborate you want to get in your build out. So there are going to be variables. But when we help them, and I apologize, the neighbors. When we help them with the funding, then the funder will help them understand exactly how much cash they're going to need. And that information will be in the FDD. Telling them how much working capital they have that they need, but also, again, that's something that they'll get from the franchise owners. The franchise owners can, they can say, Well, so how, oh, I'm so sorry. I really apologize for this.
You're fine. You're perfectly fine. And I appreciate you sharing that. So to reiterate, a lot of this is literally every step of the way, every step of the process is very, very laid out. There's a lot of regulation behind it, which is really good to hear. So when they're walking through it, it's like, hey, this is what I should expect. This is what I should be planning for. So let me also ask you, because see, I do know franchise for a good reason is a little higher barrier to entry, right? And so, which is good. You have to have a lot of times maybe about $1 million in reserves, roughly about $250,000 in there's just different offers or whatever. My question though is obviously you don't want to max yourself out.
No, of course.
So let's walk through that. Logically, where should they be at that says, okay, you know what, I got like $3 million worth of assets and I can withstand a loss for a period of time until this franchise explodes or whatever. So just walk us through that process in the right mindset.
Okay, so let me bring you down to the world of franchising. And that is that those kind of numbers you're talking about usually are in the food brands, those big brands. The world that I live in and what most people get into, they can get into a coaching franchise all in for about 50,000. Our sweet spot's about 125. If we get into something maybe in the spa, massage, that arena, maybe, or medical, we've got a lot of medical now, maybe 350 to 500. So just so your audience knows, a lot of times they're looking for someone that has a net worth of 500, 750. If it's more of a location and a larger investment, they'll look for the $1 million owners, but most of the time not. It really is affordable, much more affordable than what you were thinking.
That's actually really interesting. I did not know that. I was not aware of that actually. And I really appreciate you kind of emphasizing that a little bit. So like reiterate that one more time, which industries are kind of lower entry. And then obviously you said the medical and so forth, that's like obviously a little higher. And then the food, which is very interesting to me, food is the highest. Is that correct? Cost of entry? Okay.
Well, and understand that food, in order for someone to make food, they have to have multiple locations. It's just the nature of the business, primarily because food has very small margins. And so you can only make, I used to always laugh when I was in the printing business and selling print shops, I would never get foodies come to me because what are they? I mean, they're just like totally two different individuals. But what I would say to them is I would say you can only shove so much food through the door in a given period of time, right? So consequently, anytime someone looks at food, they're looking at least buying. Would you pause this for a minute? I'm going to go talk to the neighbors because they're teasing.
So you were saying basically, so there are different cost of entry, and you're saying specifically the food entry is higher because you have many. Just the way the structure is, it has to have more locations. If you could continue.
Yes. So typically in food, they would have a minimum of 3. To give you another example, are you familiar with Mod Pizza?
Yes.
Okay, so Mod Pizza was out of Seattle, Washington, where I was living at the time. And when they started, they would only sell to people that could afford to buy 5 locations because that was their growth pattern. So obviously they weren't looking for individuals that were coming out of corporate America. They were looking for big investors, and most of the time they're looking for people that have food experience. So in the world of food, what we see it used to be that a franchise owner in the food space would have, and it's not unusual for that, 25, 30, 40 locations, and it would be one brand. Now we're seeing multiple brands. So they may own 3 or 4 different brands. And because of technology getting better and better, I think it's easier for them to do that. So let's go down to the other part of the world of franchising, which is the world that I live in mainly. And that is that we'll have, our sweet spot's about 125,000. And I would say that's usually in the service space. So you've got the plumbing and the painting and anything that has a mobile service, it's going out and helping in the homes. And after the pandemic, everybody was home, our houses have all gone up, everybody's fixing their homes up. So it's just exploded. And we don't see that changing at all because properties have gotten they've improved so much in value that people can afford to fix them up because they're worth so much more, right? So then when you get into something that has retail location, now we're talking rent and square footage. So that's usually around 225. It can be up to about 500. So that's going to be your massages and your nail salons and the eyelash places and medical. Now there's a lot of stuff going on in medical. We're doing a lot of rejuvenation where they're doing stem cell soap and stuff like that. There's one called QK, I think it's QT Kinetics. I think that's the name of it. And it's a very interesting business model. It's open 1 day a week. And in that 1 day, they fill the whole day up with procedures, but it's all stuff that doesn't, it's like repairing my knee without having a knee replacement because they're doing the stem cell stuff. So there's a lot of that coming on the market today, which we're real excited about. Drip bars are another big segment of medical and drip bars are not just hangover drips. They're people that are going through chemo and they find that vitamin C drips really help them a lot and all sorts of different things. So, we are all living longer, thank God, and we are taking better care of our bodies, and the public has said, we want things that are better for us. So everybody seems to be upping their game and coming out with things that the customers are asking for.
I love this. I'm glad we're having this conversation because I'm going to be honest. I came into this conversation more of like that naivete, if you will, where it's like, oh, I just thought it was just food industry and the basic, I've seen automotive as well. But you start to realize, and I understand, like even in the hair industry, great clips and so forth, that is as a franchise, and there's just so many different niches or different verticals that
Yes.
you could get into. And just like you said, if you've been in the career for X amount of years, you got that experience finding ones that, of course, is in that niche you're already familiar with, you're familiar with the lingo, and then just naturally, organically transfer, adopt that business structure. Now, let's say imagine you have a business individual that has maybe one or two. At what point do you start realizing, okay, hey, you know what? I want to scale into more locations, right? And like, what does that conversation look like? What does that look like in regards to like businesses? Like, okay, you know what? I've got these set up, because sometimes it's one of those catch 22 a little bit. It's like, okay, should I get this 100% or, capacity, or should I be like, okay, 75%. Okay, now I need to start, looking at getting another location and getting that to 75% and whatever, because now you have systems processes down. I love to kind of get that process.
You see a lot of that in the physical fitness. So obviously boutique fitness is the rage. Everybody's getting into boutique fitness. People don't necessarily, there's a place for big box, some of the big boxes like Planet Fitness has done a really good job, and they've got their niche. Their niche is paying you $10 a month and you put your credit card in and you never look at it again. And that's who they bank on. That's how they make their money, bringing in a lot of people at a low cost. The boutique fitness is very popular. And typically in that business model, you would buy 3 and you would open your first one. And one of the beauties of boutique fitness is they all go on the membership model. So they do a pre-sale. So 9 times out of 10, when they open, they're already cash flow positive because they have been able for 2 months to recruit enough members to be able to make that gym successful. So the owner has been working to get that first one up and built. He's already in the process of looking for number 2. And then strategically, he'll work on number 3. Plus, when you do something like that, you're signing an agreement that says, I will open up location number 2 in this amount of time and location number 3 in this amount of time. Now, there's a reason for that. Over the years in franchising, a lot of companies have had real big issues with George goes in and he buys 3 and he opens up the first one. He goes, oh my God, this is a lot of work. I don't want to do anymore. Okay, so then he sits on 2 golden territories. So they had to have some sort of a mechanism to be able to take that territory back so they don't have a big hole in their market where people could be served and they can't. So they're very strategic in the way that they do that, but it's a great business model. And again, it's another one of the things that you'll be able to find out from the other franchise owners of how did you do it? because they get to learn from their peers. They get real life experience and knowledge as opposed to, hoping that somebody over there has done something similar to what I'm doing. They've done this exact thing. And that's one of the reasons I love franchising, because you're not in business by yourself, because you do have not only the corporate headquarters that has a vested interest in you, but also other franchise owners that have walked the path already.
hmm And that's really what it comes down to, is building a community that is walking through that path, because obviously, iron sharpens iron kind of concept, right? We get that. That makes perfect sense.
ISI,
Now,
but Christian, ISI happens to be a franchise. Iron sharpens iron. Yeah, that's
that's awesome. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
You caught me up. Okay, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
they're out
That's
of Atlanta, Georgia.
So let me ask you this, because I do know, and this might be a stupid question, because obviously you can Google this stuff, but I do want, I do want to ask this, because I think it's very viable, because just like me, definitely for someone that's just getting this space, or like obviously very familiar with the space, or vice versa, it's like there's so many different opportunities, and obviously, really, which platforms are the best to find different opportunities to connect with. I do know that there's like obviously conventions and people that are constantly pushing out. It's just like, going to university, there's a ton of people that are trying to push their franchise, right? It's just being part of that, right?
Sure.
So I do know that there's opportunities, but I would love for you to kind of, though there's also bad ones, right? Platforms that facilitate kind of that relationship.
Yes.
To ask, like, which platforms are the best, or ecosystems are the best to really say, okay, hey, this is where to get and gather the right information with this for these franchises.
So the two main areas that I think focus on most of the best brands are Entrepreneur Magazine comes out with their Franchise 500, and franchise.org, which is the International Franchise Association's website. And so everyone who's on there is a member of the International Franchise Association. And the reason that I talk about those two mainly is because the franchise community is a very unique business model, where you can have a table of 10 people. You could have 3 CEOs of the same industry, let's say all senior care, and they are sitting at the table sharing best practices. Because in the franchise industry, it's like a big family, and everybody is there to up-level everybody else. And that's one of the things I love about it. The reason I got my CFE was because I wanted to be the very best that I could be for my clients, and be on the cutting edge of what's new and what's going on, and who are the people that are really doing the business and really have a heart for the people. And that's where you find them, is at the International Franchise Association. So I really respect that organization. I think they do a good job, and they're always trying to find a way to educate and to up-level their franchise owners.
Love this. I love this. Awesome. I think this is really awesome. And I appreciate this insight, because obviously you come with immense amount of experience. So let's talk about in the journey of it. Okay. What are common missteps that franchise owners, and not just talking about mindset, but like missteps that they should be aware of, that like, oh, maybe it's the hiring process. Maybe it's the location. Maybe it's the systems and the process and the operations, because a lot goes into it, and you have to be kind of a jack of all trades a little bit in that regard. Obviously you can hire out, but you have to have the cash flow to be able to, facilitate that. So I'd love to just, get your experience. What have you seen that obviously, equate to, okay, missteps, and that pull them the wrong direction?
Okay, so first of all, when it comes to finding the right location, a franchise company is going to have a real estate department. So they are going to help you not only find the right location, they're also going to help you negotiate the lease. So again, you're not going to be doing it on your own. They're going to be helping you. Do they always do it perfect? No. Do they make mistakes? Sure. Because, you can't be an expert in every territory in the whole country. And I can speak from experience, because I remember years ago, I had a client who wanted to open up a Sir Speedy in Morgan Hill, California. And when his application first came in, they turned him down. Of course, needless to say, I was furious. And I said to him, why would you turn him down? Oh, well, the market's not big enough. Well, once I went in and brought them more data. Now, mind you, this is before the internet, so they didn't have as much good data. But I was able to show them that this market was really growing, that IBM was in San Jose and people were moving down that way. So the point I'm trying to say is that the franchisor, again, has a vested interest. So they're going to help them find the real estate. They're going to have pre-training. They're going to have post-training. But the biggest mistake that franchise owners make is they buck the system and don't do what they say. Sorry, it's the truth. But
I love it. I love it. And you're exactly right. I mean, honestly, it's like you have everything. You have everything laid out, and then all of a sudden they just don't do it. And the stubborn egoness, whatever. I know my way. And it's like, okay, bud, just implement and just embrace what you don't know. I love that. I appreciate the honesty on that, because honestly, let's be honest, the ego definitely gets in the way, right?
Totally. So I'll tell you a great story. So I go to my first convention with Sir Speedy. Now, I'd been a franchise owner and, was very successful with that. And then I spent 10 years in the automotive space. So I get recruited by Sir Speedy to sell for them. So I go to the convention and I'm all excited. Now, this was in the 80s, and I was going to go to the $1 Million Roundtable. Well, obviously, I mean, the $1 Million Roundtable is a big deal, but in the 80s, it was really a big deal. At least in my mind, it was. So I went and I sit and I wrote on my blue card, what are you doing differently to be able to do $1 million? And the woman looked at the card and she read it and she looked up and she said, we follow the system. I said, no, seriously, what's your secret? I said, I'm in franchise development and I want to tell my people what the secret is to be successful. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? The system works. It may sound trite, but follow the system. The system works. And I've never forgotten that, because she was absolutely right. I mean, I've seen owners almost go bankrupt because they were so stubborn and wanted to do it their own way. And they finally say, okay, I'm going to give you 2 months. And within 2 months, they turn it around and they skyrocket.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And that's really what it comes down. We've all heard pride comes before a fall, right? And we get that. And so pride comes in you, and you have that ego, and you're not able to just, embrace the humility and say, hey, I don't know what I don't know. It's a whole different world. And all of a sudden, if you just have the coach, just like Phyllis, then that comes along beside you, that's been doing it for 35 years and knows the pitfalls, that can help you say, okay, hey, let's avoid this. You don't have to, explain why. It just, trust me, we don't want to do that, whatever. And it obviously creates better engagement. Now tell me a little bit about like some of your successes as well in regards to some of your clients, being able to work with you, and obviously facilitating that relationship where it's like, okay, maybe they've been able to increase their revenue. Maybe it's because of your relationship, they've been able to add more locations. Just kind of give me a few case studies of what your success has been.
Okay, so I'll tell you a couple stories. One was a gentleman from my church, and he had lost his job, and I watched him every week, kind of downtrodden. And, I'd ask him how things were going, and, he said things were going slowly. Anyway, 2 years later, I finally looked at him and I said, will you please work with me? I said, I promise you, it'll be educational, it'll be fun, and let's see what we can come up with. Well, as it turns out, I was able to very successfully find him a wonderful franchise. And it's funny because when I was introduced to this company, I knew the CEO that started it. I respected him. He had grown a very successful franchise company. I knew Rob's heart, and I knew this would be a perfect match for him. And he now is a senior advisor with Oasis Senior Advisors. And he helps families find the right home to put mom or dad. And it's so perfect for him because he's that kind of guy that really cares about people. He kind of does what I do, except in the senior care housing section. But more importantly, I have a dear friend who has dementia, and I had to full circle call him and say, can you find a home for our friend Jennifer? So, it's a sweet, sad story, but it was a perfect match for him. The other one I'll tell you about is a gentleman that came to me. He had retired from the automotive industry, and he came to me because he wanted storage units. Well, the more I got to know him, the more I said to him, you would be bored out of your gourd with storage units, because he was very much a people person. Well, fast forward. So I showed him several things. We never found anything that really hit. And then Supercuts decided to sell 650 company stores. They had a new CEO that came in and looked at the books and said, wait a minute here. We've got 650 company stores and we have all the rest are franchise units. The franchise units are out producing and doing our company stores. I think we should sell them. Well, I was able to secure 12 of those for my client, and he opened 12 Supercuts before the pandemic. When he called me during the pandemic, I had a wee bit of a heart attack, but he was fine. Supercuts just was amazing about making sure they got the PPP money and all the paperwork filled out and everything. And it is a legacy for him. He's loving it because he loves people. He knows when all the salon gals have anniversaries and babies and birthdays and all that kind of stuff. And it's the perfect match for him. So those are a couple of the stories that I love to share, because it's realizing that it's one thing to have a lot of money, but if you don't do something creatively with it, the government's going to get it all. You know, you're going to pay a lot of inheritance. So if you can defer some of that, you know, into a corporation and have your family be a legacy for you, it's a very smart investment to me.
Definitely, definitely. I love it. I just appreciate the massive insight that you've given us. Like, obviously, just even, branching our view to realizing there's so many different franchise opportunities, and really strategically how to, build that franchise, from what hurdles to be aware of, what, structure and operational side of things we should be focusing on, as well as, obviously scaling that. Phyllis, how can our audience reach out to you if they're just beginning, or if they're intermediate, or they're in the kind of in the middle of it? So how can they reach out to you?
So I'm really easy to find. I'm at yourfranchisecoach.com, or just look up Phyllis Pieri and you'll find me. On my website, I have a free download for a vision board training, because one of the things I love for people to do is to start creating the vision that they're looking to that they want for the future. So, creating a vision board is a great place to start. It's one of the things I encourage my clients to do, is to create a vision board. But I'd love to have a conversation with anybody. Doesn't matter what part of the journey they're on. And if there's somebody out there that has a proven concept and they want to turn it into a franchise, I have loved to help people do that. I've got 2 in the process right now that are real exciting. One is Pool Table Pros. Now, who would have thought you could turn a business, pool repair business, into a franchise? But you know what? It's going to be an absolute rocket ship, because think about all the pool tables around, and what you don't realize is a lot of corporations and Apple and Google, all those guys, they have game rooms for their employees. It's one of the ways that they can get creative, and he has all the contracts on all those. So he goes in and repairs them all, and then we're going to set up national accounts with all the franchise companies, that when somebody moves and they have a pool table, it's like a special piece of antique furniture, and movers won't move it. You have to call a freight company.
That's awesome. That is awesome to see. Well, that is awesome. And guys, those links will be in the description below, so you can make sure you can consume and obviously get part of what Phyllis has got going on and just be part of it. And again, one of the biggest things that I want to iterate more than anything else is, when you're in this, you're talking a large amount of money, 50, 60, 80,000, 250,000, whatever it may be. The reality is you want to make sure that you obviously have a good coach, consultant, someone that's alongside you that nobody's been there, done that, and obviously can, really save you from a lot of hurdles. Now, Phyllis, before we let you go, again, I appreciate the amount of value that you brought today. Is there any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with our audience?
Well, I'd like to share 2 things. One is that I also have financial vendors that I work with, so I can help them with that aspect of the business too. They don't have to try and figure that out on their own. And the other thing I would say is that if you're going to consider a franchise, please come with an open mind, because 9 times out of 10, I'm going to introduce you to things you would have never dreamed of, and you're going to think I'm crazy. But as it's been said to me many times, the more I looked at it, the more I loved it. And that's what I love about what I do.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much again. That is Phyllis Pieri. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can.
Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review and just show some love to our guest. That would be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.